Nicole serves as the founder and executive director of Hopeprint, a local organization in Syracuse which seeks to create opportunities, facilitate personal development, and inspire hope by cultivating relationships between the resettled refugee community and the community at large. Nicole lives in the neighborhood where Hopeprint is based, and their home serves as an open door of hospitality, a venue for the relationships to be built. So will you welcome with me Nicole Watts?
Incarnational is this word that I heard a long time ago, actually just a few years back, but it feels like forever. And it was a word that I had never heard before. As a matter of fact, Microsoft Word likes to tell me every time I type it in my computer that it's not a real word. But that's the way that I felt about it when I first heard it. Incarnational. What does it mean? What does it mean to live physically present, to be available, and to be vulnerable to people? Incarnational. See, I was living in the midst of my manliest life, surrounded by neighbors that were nice people. I had my air conditioning, my cable TV. I worked hard at church, basically slept at my house, and I thought that my life was put together in the way that it ought to be. I had grown up in a Christian home. I had learned all the ways that we ought to live as a Christian person, and I sought to do that with my whole life. And yet, as I would open my Bible, at times I would come to these passages in places like Acts where it talks about how people shared everything in common. Or there were these signs of the miraculous and these unusual lives, and I would look around me and I would ask, where is that taking place in my world? It seems so commonplace and normal in the Bible, and yet I don't see it really in my life today. But as I would ask those questions to other people, I would be told all throughout my life that that was then and this is now, or that was back when they thought Jesus was going to come right back, and then they realized that's not realistic, really. And so we can't live that way every day. And so instead we have found this new way to live out this faith that we have. And so I would eventually go back to burying my questions and continue to live my life. And then that word came, incarnational. And with the word came this beckoning to live life differently than I had ever lived it before. As I started to ask hard questions like, what's my neighbor's name? It was hard because I realized I didn't know. As a matter of fact, I would not have recognized them in the grocery store. I had no idea who lived around me. And I realized that in the place and the space that I was sleeping and breathing and living, I was not actively involved in their lives. And then I asked the question, whose life am I really involved in? And the group of people that I found in my life that I was investing in were 25 minutes away in the midst of the city where there were people that would look at me like I was crazy that I would go there. When a real estate agent was asked, where do you want to look for a house? And I told them the zip code. They looked at me and said, no way. I am not showing you houses there. The police give me crooked eyes when I tell them where this part of the neighborhood is. And that was where my community was. And I realized that if I really wanted to live this idea of incarnational, to be physically present and available and vulnerable in their lives, I had to stop commuting into their world. I had to actually become part of the fabric of their neighborhood and daily lives, to have them be my friends, the ones that I called when I needed something. Where the cup of sugar would come from when I didn't have it for my recipe, I needed to be in their neighborhood. And so I took the step with 4 other people and moved down into this neighborhood that many people thought I was crazy. And the next few weeks that ensued after that were quite a bit of proof to that argument. My neighbor pulled a knife on his brother, and I ended up somehow in the middle of this craziness of police being called and the knife being upstairs and everyone screaming in Arabic and English and seeing guns on people's hips and realizing, where am I? But I am here in this moment because I need to be here. Or weeks later when another neighbor tried to light himself and the house on fire. And I was there with the mom as she wept and cried, realizing that her son had just tried to ruin their family and their home. And then when he returned home and was so angry, he beat her with a cable. I walked with her to the courthouse. I wept with her, I walked with her, and I lived life with her. Months later, when I went to go travel overseas, she came over to my house bearing this little package of things, and she said, I just made this journey a year ago across the same ocean, and it's a long journey, and I want you to have these things to take care of you on it. We became friends because we did life together. We didn't just wave when we took out our trash cans. We were vulnerable. In the times and the spaces where we needed to be available, we were available. I sat at the dining room table with people in my home, and we had meals, and we shared, and we laughed, and I learned more in just a few short months than I learned in all my college experience about the world, about its history, about the things that ail people. They told me their stories, they shared their lives, and I got to share mine, and we had this beautiful exchange of friendship. I watched as they learned English, and they began to transform, and how our life being in their life impacted not only them, but impacted me. I've lived this life for 2 years now, living among this neighborhood of amazing people. I have experienced now what it says in Acts when it talks about sharing things in common and having spaces that are uncomfortable of sharing your life and rubbing shoulders with other people, to come and to die, to love your neighbor as yourself. And don't get me wrong, I don't do it perfect every day, but now those passages mean something to me. They have come to life in my life. But my walls are all marked up. And my carpet is almost never clean. I walked in my house yesterday and it smelled like fish. I don't like fish. We've had bed bugs twice. Carried in on the clothes and the book bags of our guests. A couple families of mice and roaches have migrated from vacant homes into ours. There are many moments when I realize that this is not shiny and pretty. I used to think that I wanted to be a foster parent because I was uniquely wired to somehow enter into someone's life, invest deeply, and then walk away and trust them to God. And as 2 families moved away in the end of February, I realize that that's really what my life has become. That little girl who showed up at my doorstep angry, and who I every day told her, I love you, I love you, I love you, and I watched her melt. And then she moved, and I realized I might never see this little girl again. I wept. Because I realized that my life has become a revolving door of investing deeply and loving vulnerably, and then they leave, and sometimes they don't even say goodbye. I lose my friends. And it's really easy to want to give up. It's really easy to want to walk away. To ask that question, God, why? Why do you call us into this life that's uncomfortable? Why don't you just let us live in our AC and in our comfort zone and close the garage door behind us? Why do you call us to live this incarnational life? Why do you call me to be not only available but vulnerable, to constantly overcome my desire to guard myself to be a vulnerable person? To be incarnational is to be available when I have nothing left to give. To be vulnerable when I know that it's not safe. To love to the end of myself, to the dying of myself. See, then, friends, that's the kingdom life. Because Jesus didn't say, come and live that you might live. He said, come and die that you might live. Jesus walked, cried, ate, laughed, breathed, slept, lived among. And he said, "Follow me. Count me among the imperfect and the broken, the redeemed and the restored." The incarnational life is for today. And it doesn't matter if you live in the neighborhoods where no one wants to show you a house or the police look at you crooked-eyed. It's true in our suburban streets, in the farmlands of the countryside. In every space and in every place that we live, Jesus gives us all this shared calling. Will you come and die that you might live?